failure, just being mischievous. Yeah.
I mean, others have linked it to the fact that the president was within the district just yesterday, was campaigning, and others have linked it towards that, issues around mobilization, being able to pool numbers a day after the incumbent was within the area.
Take it from me, and I'm not one who likes to distort the truth. The president arrived in Lusaka in the early hours of today, you know, and as I said to you that...
The president of the Tonse Alliance, you mean?
That's right,
okay.
and his running mate. As you know, that they had a rally yesterday in Mansa until very late. You know, we've not been given clearance for flying, so he's by road, and that is very tedious. So to suggest that the rally was a failure is just being dishonest. The rally had been rescheduled, and that is why we have a plan here. Again, as I say in other people, you know, sometimes we have to be honest and realistic about the things that we discuss. The president and his running mate are human beings, and this is very tedious. It's a lot of tedious work, and sometimes there is dislocation in the way you planned it. But we as a committee had initially wanted a rally to be in curfew today because we didn't want to lose any days. As you can see, the days that are there, we don't even have a weekend in Lusaka, and this is a capital, you know, and we were not given it because of other circumstances. So initially we had wanted to hold a rally in Kafue, but we had all agreed that we needed to give time for the president at least to rest for a day, get his voice back and get his energy back. He's a human being.
Lusaka province definitely has the highest population of in this country, it being an urban area. How confident are you that, as the opposition, Mr. Brandman, who was the president of the alliance, will secure a very, very strong victory within the province? We're
very confident. We're very, very confident that he's on top of the table. If we were to look at popularity of all the candidates that are there, we think that all the indications and our analysis definitely put him at the very top. You know, Lusaka Urban as well as Copper Belt are the areas which are closest to the heart of government. And because they're very close to the heart of government, they are privy to all the iniquities that government performs. They are in close contact to the behavior of ministers, to all the rumors that go on. And as you know, urban areas do not farm largely. They're the most impacted by the cost of living. And from a historical point of view, they are the most alert, as I said, to the iniquities of government. So there is already a propensity for urban areas to gravitate away from the state and the government. And it's not only in Zambia, but it is throughout the world. You find that incumbent governments always find difficulties in the urban areas, as MMD did, as the PF did, as UNIT did. It is in the urban areas, because of the particular mix, that they are most sensitive to it. Even more towards a government that undertook to do so many things and have been unable to fulfill those things, the gravitation was quite swift. Then also with the fact that we are putting forward a very good candidate and a very good ticket, and we think that we have got a very strong presence here.
So, but do you think the name of Mr. Brandman Ndubile or the name of the party, the National Reconciliation Party for Unity and Prosperity, has been sold well enough to guarantee this vote? Because again, if you look at what it is, we have 14 candidates. If we put the Republican president aside, who you feel is disadvantaged from the urban vote, and if we put away Mr. Brandman, there's 13 other presidential hopefuls. So why Mr. Brandman? Why is he a favorite?
Again, let me look at the historical context and then the reality on the ground now. I have been communicating this message to a lot of people for the last 2 years. If you look at the trend in Zambia, you will find that usually there are only maybe 2 contenders or 3 contenders at most. And that is when you've had a lengthy period of campaigning where there were a lot of people who were known for a long period. You have that situation. The history in this country is that even when you have 16 candidates, you will find that 14 of them score under 1%. And this is a fact, okay? Usually Zambians gravitate towards 2 or 3. For the longest period, it was just 2. For about a period of 15 years in the middle, there were 3 main players. Right now, they're just 2. You know, they're just 2. I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody else, but all the other remaining ones, they won't even get anywhere near to 1%. So,
what's the measurement? What makes you say that?
Well, first of all, I told you that there's a historical context to that, and we are what we are because of our history. You can only know human beings of what they're going to do because of what they've done in the past, and the trends that we see in the past are virtually cast in concrete. If I ask the ordinary person on the street today, name 5 candidates who are standing, most of them will not give you the 5. Okay. Most of them. I saw Laura Miti here once when she was being interviewed, I think, by Costa. She was able to say, I only know 3. And this is the case everywhere else. You know, the majority of people don't know who the other candidates are. This contest is between HH and Brian Munduvile, or I should say HH with Nalumango, with Brian Munduvile and Muhabi Lungu. And this is all the information that we are getting. Those are the only 2 considerations. So I don't think there is even a point to belabor this point and discard the other candidate, because I really don't think they are of any significance. I'm not dismissing them, and I don't want to be disrespectful, but it's just a fact. So there's a historical part. But also, I wanted to talk about the current set of circumstances. One of the advantages that we have is that often enough, the voters tend to first decide and evaluate the person who is in government. Okay? Before you even consider who the alternative is, we usually evaluate the person who's in government because they're the ones who were given the job. So when you are evaluating a person whether to renew their contract or not, you first begin with the person who is in the seat. And when you decide as a people that we don't think that they have done a good job, then you begin to look for the person who you think should now fill that vacancy which has been created because you have decided that this person can no longer continue. And I would like to put it to you that the majority of Zambians already decided months ago that they were unprepared to have the current president continue because he has not achieved what he undertook for them to achieve. So that there is that part of the component. The second one is that voters are usually quite clever. They know that if they're going to diffuse their vote, that the chances of removing the person who they want to leave to get out of the job may be smaller. So they begin to identify the person who's got the capacity to be able to defeat the person who they want to defeat. And quite clear, the majority by far have decided that Munduvile and Muhabi is the ticket for doing that. So that is one of our confidences. Lastly, before you even push, look at the number of those of us who were originally not members of the Patriotic Front, who were members of other political parties. There are so many of that. As we assessed all these other presidents, we have all decided to push and back the ticket of Brian Munduvile and Muhabi Lungu, because we can see that that is where the hope lies. We can see that is where the real deal is. We can see that that is where the experience is in terms of governance and in terms of character.
Well, what is your message to those who are dissatisfied or maybe dissatisfied with the current governance, but are not completely convinced by Mr. Brian Munduvile, who you speak of? And some of their discontentment may arise from their fears that if Mr. Brian Munduvile is elected, it's as good as bringing back the Patriotic Front that was voted out at presidential level in 2021. And in fact, to stress on that point, we've seen how President Hakainde Hichilema and the UPND have been stressing the message, that is their message, that these are just the same people regrouping. So what is your message to that person who's buying into that message, that they may be dissatisfied with the current governance system, but are not convinced about Mr. Munduvile?
I would say this, that the essential elements of a democratic system is that you have a party system. And the party system operates in such a way that if a party has been given the opportunity to govern and that the people have evaluated that they have failed, they throw out the leader and the cabinet that was there. And that once this happens, that political party is then supposed to relook at their behavior, at their policies, at whatever they were doing, which were disapproved of by the voters. And then they make an adjustment. And usually that adjustment is made to the leadership and to the policies and to the behavior. And so even if we were speaking about the patriotic front in its purity, they would have to go through this process of regrouping, reflection, and then rebooting. And that is how all democratic systems work, okay? Now, that is the first point. The second point, I just want to give you an example. I'm sure you are a follower of international politics, like many of us. In England right now, the Prime Minister is Keir Starmer. And Keir Starmer has been found wanting by his own political party, of course reflective of what the general public in England are feeling. And they have identified Andy Burnham, who was a mayor, I think, for the greater city of Manchester, and he stood for a parliamentary seat and is en route, to becoming the new Prime Minister of England. And when that happens, the parliamentary party will support him, the people will be rebooted because the leadership has changed. Okay? Now, the presidency and the premierships are positions which are identified with a particular person who leads that political party. So I wanted to just share that example. Let me come back to our country.
To
Zambia. President Hichilema is fond of calling Brian Munduvile and Muhabi Zulu boys, who are criminals, who are part of the system, therefore don't trust him. And he's made this demarcation very interestingly. And I have always pointed out in many of these shows that I've been doing that a person can only be held accountable for the responsibilities which they had. Okay? So, Brian Munduvile, who was Minister of Northern Province, cannot be evaluated for being Minister of Finance. That was not his role. Brian Munduvile, who was Minister of Eastern Province, cannot be evaluated for being... Muhabi Zulu cannot be evaluated for being Minister of Tourism or Infrastructure. And you can't say that Honorable Felix Mutati, who was Minister of Finance during that administration, is good because he's on your side. The Minister Mao Sampa, who was Provincial Minister for Southern Province, is okay because he's on your side. Sidney Mushanga, there are so many of the PF people that are on his side, and there's nothing wrong with them. But those who have decided to try and build the other brand, no, those are criminals and little boys. What about the people that you have in the ministry who were part of that same administration? So that is hypocrisy. Okay, that is what I would say to the viewers, that the president and the UPND are being hypocritical. So now let me get to the clincher, and this is this. As I said, a person must be evaluated for the job that they were doing. Brian Munduvile has never been president of this republic. Okay? For you to say that because he was provincial minister, don't consider him for the presidency, is being naive and it is not thinking very deep. Okay? For you to suggest Muhabi Zulu cannot be the vice president because he was provincial minister for Eastern Province, again, there is a mismatch there.
But part of the people who've brought these allegations are now found with Mr. Bradman today.
Yeah, look, Zambian politics has got this tendency of these types of movements. Okay, it is part of our acculturation as politicians, which we probably have to deal with as we mature. okay? But that doesn't take away from the arguments that I'm making, that in a real world, I cannot evaluate you for running KBN television because you are not at KBN. Even if you are a former employee, you are not in charge. I mean, so you can't do that. The question I'm saying to you that we have to evaluate Muhabi Zulu and Honorable Brian Mundubile for what they have achieved in their own personal lives. And as I've said on another program, Mundubile is a chartered accountant. And you have to be pretty smart to be a chartered accountant. I think you would agree with that. He is a master's holder in law. He has run a successful businesses in his own right. He has been chosen as leader of the opposition, chief whip, and finally he was chosen by a collective of other people to be leader of the Tonse Alliance. When other groupings came, the Zambia We Want, the Waza, it has so many gifted people like Sakuiwa Scotta, like Sebastian Komplande, like Chishala Kateka, like my own president in the Zambia We Want, Kapembo Simbao. And all of these people plus more have assessed Brian Mundubile and Muhabi Zulu and have said this is the best people we can put forward to contest on this. And you can't dismiss all of that. I am not completely without merit myself. And I have worked for important people and many people and have been around power and influence for a great deal of my adult life. And I'm able to make an assessment as to whether Mundubile and Muhabi Zulu would be able to be trusted as people who can take this country forward. And I think that they're the right team. At another interview, the interviewer asked me that there is this joke going around that it is very difficult for an educated person to follow Brian Mundubile and Muhabi Zulu. And I said to them, again, that is being salacious, that is being, I think, petty, and some of the people that pass these things out have got themselves perhaps the qualifications that Brian Mundubile and Muhabi have, they don't have. No, the personal successes in this. If people like Dr. Kuplande, a Harvard alumni, and so many other people with very good CVs are able to evaluate that these are the people, the electorate should be able to have some degree of confidence.
But then, speaking of the confidence, I know you raised the point of some of the members from the Patriotic Front who have joined the UPND today. Yeah. But many would argue that if you look at the people who have joined compared to those who are actively campaigning with Mr. Brian Mundubile, a good number of them were cabinet ministers, even during the time as the Patriotic Front, in the year the Patriotic Front were being ushered out of government. So meaning they were part of key government decisions. We can make examples of the likes of Mr. Mtote Kafwaya, Mr. Stephen Kampiongo, and many others who were in cabinet during that particular year, right before Parliament was dissolved. Okay. Whereas those who were campaigning with the UPND were not part of that level of decision-making within government. So many would use that argument.
That is not true. Mutati was Minister of Finance in the PF. I've just already stated that. Okay? And the Minister of Finance is the most senior position.
But he was actually relieved of his duties. Recently, he talked about this during a rally with the Vice President it should have been Mchinga Province, if I'm not mistaken, where he talked about how he was relieved of his duties. But and the assertions were that at the time, President Edgar Lungu they were not in tandem in terms of decision making. That was his recent argument.
That is his story. That is what he has told you, and that is what he wants the public to believe. But that doesn't change the fact that he was Minister of Finance, and that if it was a bad thing to belong to the PF as Minister of Finance, then he should not be the one who is accepted by the UPND. The point that is being made here is that you can't say that the people who are part of an organization are only good if they are on your side. I mean, it shows that you're just being biased, okay? And secondly, as I was saying, Mutati was a senior minister compared to Brian Mundubile and Muhabi Zulu. And if he thinks that Brian Mundubile is a criminal, let's assume, he should be arrested.
But going into the 2021 election, Mr. Mutati was not a member of the Patriotic Front. He actively was campaigning with now President Hakainde.
But does that change the fact?
So probably he disassociated himself from the PF right in time before the election. So to his credibility, he could end that point.
Is this about disassociation? When Mr. Hakainde, when President Hakainde is talking about those who are in the PF, is he talking about people who had associated themselves? He's talking about people who are supporting him. Even Mao Sampa, until just 5 weeks ago, was still claiming to be PF. You know, now he's on the other side and he's okay. Chavinga, I was still claiming to be PF. Now he's on the other side and he's still okay. Now, I think that rather than us belabor this point, the point that I'm saying to you is that you can't judge a person upon a responsibility which they did not have. The job application that Honorable Brian Mundubile has applied for is president. And the president is the one who gives direction. If you ask the secretary to the cabinet how you define cabinet, it is president plus one. Okay? Cabinet is an advisory body. And the direction that is given as the executive is from the president. If we change President Hakainde today with someone else within the UPND, I can guarantee you that the character of government, the direction of government would change because the person is no longer the same, even if they may be part of the same political party. It happens in every organization. That is why even in this organization themselves, if you are the managing director of your company and tomorrow you have found better, greener pastures, or you've started your own and they bring somebody else, the first thing they will look at is even if the station was assumably very successful, they would look at this, okay, what are the pros and cons, and they will be able to then model the station according to the character and the perspective of the new person. It happens everywhere. So to suggest that the behavior of Brian Mundubile would be exactly the same as, say, the behavior of Michael Sato or the behavior of Arabi or the behavior of HH is being unrealistic and being untruthful. Mundubile should be evaluated. The only way we can evaluate Mundubile is to say, did he do a good job when he was Prevention Minister? And I can tell you that he did. Did he steal anybody's money when he was Prevention Minister? No evidence whatsoever. And if Brian Mundubile and Muhabi are throwing things like that to him, he would have them arrested. He would say that they are being disrespectful. He would be saying that they are haters, because that's what he likes, to blame people and make only himself as the Almighty. This man we see here is an educated man. He's an experienced individual. He's a humble man, not arrogant as a people, and he should be trusted by the ordinary Zambian that he would make for a very, very good president.
We've seen a number of political players getting to endorse him. You see the likes of Mr. Andy Ford Banda, who was a running mate for the Organized People's Party, one of the presidential candidates, Mr. Dr. Brian Mushimba. You see the likes of Mr. Sean Tembo, Xavier Chungu, among others. Are you still expecting more?
Yeah, there are more players who are getting in touch every day, who want to be able to be part of this process of ensuring that we give hope to our country, which many of us felt has been diminishing over the last 4 years because of the character of the UPND in general. So there are still some more that are coming. And obviously, the fact that you have people who are endorsing Brian, who were running mates to other people, should also give you an indication of those other people who were there. Because if your running mate is running away from you, then why should the voters run towards you? It means they've seen something. If your own candidates that are standing on your own political party are endorsing some other president apart from yourself, it means that they've seen something in you which perhaps they're discouraged, no matter what they say, in comparison to the candidate who they think is in pole position. So all of this is an indication that all of those who are undecided about this should should have the confidence that there is something positive about the ticket that all of these people are endorsing. And they should favorably be dispositioned towards supporting the candidacy of Brian Mundubile and his running mate.
Well, one man who seems to not be fazed by these endorsements and is a presidential aspirant himself is Mr. Harry Kalaba of the Citizens First Political Party. And many people have asked him his thoughts about it. And let's just take a look at what Mr. Harry Kalaba had to say in an interview recently.
Vision for mulandu wentobile okutila awe ifyo mulefo okutwa ba Harrison okutila join anybody tuwa join shani badia iwe na iwe nawe kwatire nganda yobe nawe kwatire nganda yobe ati yo fuma munganda yobe kabe musonkela muri iria nganda bantu bonse bale batire nganda ile moneka bwino awe imwe nganda oshilalamu bayikumba omutenge ifwenga ba citizens first we are remaining resolute. Elo mwe bali abalebe povu iyo Kalaba nashita endozi aba nashita endozi balia muna ndushita nashita endozi presidential candidate munando tuna ballot. Why would I do that? Ine panopo nchise panopa radio delight kuitonda ndeba bena chinsali okutira mwe bena chinsali mutupituluke mo bonse fo bale fa ku president mucheche fo bale fa ku president bantu mulenje bati iwe join ni aba my brother Brian awe tekumupata omunanje. He's a very good friend of mine. Turayanda nokwanza na Brian. But chinga chakutila ba PF bali take up. Chino chalo. Ba PF bali take up. After 4 years. Bali mu government. Elo. Wow, Brian limbi kuti ababwino mwinena ngofya pala kwefyo. But marasa ngokutila kuti bamuva mo abali around. Moya mu PF obonde monati ulia ewatimenu ifya makada sana ulia ifya intercity ulia ewali muri corruption idia valia nombanga nabamona bambo kuwela file bonse balesa pango filia chinenza kamika inenga hari kala ndanda kutila filia tetinsumini. First of all ewata wala join omnobe kulanda achibusa ngapa pale moneka shani ngapa to alakita shani ngapa mwala wa mya shani pantu Harrison wirabo uko nafu maine ina nafu mine mu PF. Ero mu PF tabanta mfishe na ile kielefie ero na mwene imwe misango yabola ile chitikana tawe na fuma mu pantu ifika la chimbui tefika na maikata. So lero kusanje batiyo pantu ichalo cho chirando kutira Kalaba join ni hapa na mabonse imbeni chorus supporteni na mabonse ka supporteni nendando kutila ngabadi aba mubo ebombwene pantu wakalema takaleka ngabali ambuno kutila kwena ebale chitefi chatupela chance ngaba CF ukala punch naba nenso nomba tulifo tubombele pamu nomba ngaudi akamusango kadya ebale poka maplot bali nomba ngabali akabiri badya pantu badya ebale lila abantu ndaba mu intercity.
In a nutshell, he's identified certain individuals that he's not comfortable with surrounding Mr. Brian Mundubile. Comes back to the earlier point we were just touching on. What's your reaction to that?
Well, obviously, first let me complain that I think you've run it for too long because this is not his time. But regardless of that, I was answering a question regarding all of those people who have endorsed Brian Mundubile, okay? I have not made a decision right now to start attacking other opposition political parties who are standing. There are a number of them because I think clearly, even to their perspective, Brian Mundubile is far ahead, that who have taken some pot shots at him. And I think that you've seen that our role within the Tonsi Alliance is just to ignore them. And so I would take that same position. I'm not going to answer.
Although these sentiments will be shared among some people who might be watching, prospective voters as well.
But I think that it is understood by the voters that the reaction of some of these candidates is because people who are very close to them have done something that is injurious to them. If you have your running mate leave and endorse someone else, obviously you would feel injured. If you have your youth secretary leave you, quit a parliamentary seat and support somebody else, of course you would feel injured. If you have had someone who is standing on your ticket endorsing someone, you will feel injured. So I understand his injury, okay? And I don't want to pour cold water as an injury simply because he said something that may be inaccurate about my candidate. All I know is that there is no evidence that Brian Munduwile or Mekabi Zulu ordered any political cadres to be attacked. And Brian Munduwile has been very categorical that he doesn't want party cadres to be given the sort of power that the Zambian people rejected. He has actually kneeled in some of the rallies to seek for forgiveness for some of the things which were done by the previous administration. That is not to say that everything that the PF did was bad. But I think that he does recognize that there are a number of issues which were not done properly, and that is one of the reasons they lost office. He's never hidden that. And as I said to you earlier on, the reasonable thing of a political party that loses office is to reflect upon what the voters did. And then you change the leadership. And that has happened. Now, for people to also keep on going back to the PF, to the PF, to the PF, Brian Munduwile is not standing on the PF. The same person who was complaining there is not standing on the ticket for which he was minister. Okay, and several other people. Brian Munduwile is standing on the vehicle of the NRP-UP. And many of the people that are supporting him have come from all walks of life and from all other political parties. This is an alliance. And in an alliance, what you do is that you bring the best ideas from all the alliance partners. What you do is that you bring the best behavior from all the alliance partners, and you create something that is new. And that is what has been happening here. This is an alliance. There will be, of course, those issues for which the two candidates on the ticket will hold dear, that were part of the Patriotic Front, and there are things to hold. I mean, the Patriotic Front built infrastructure all over this country. They strengthened the constitutions which we are operating today. They did provide more money to people. They did create a trajectory which Zambians may be able to look forward and say, okay, this was something. I have said in other areas, there is no president in the history of the whole world where everything you did was right or that everything you did was bad. There are strengths and weaknesses, and you leverage on your strength, and when the people decides, you discard those things which the people have already told you are bad. Okay? So to keep on going back to this as if people don't change, to evaluate me as if me and President Chilua is really being unfair to President Chilua and being unfair to me, because I'm a different person. Brian Munduwile is a human being who is different. He's got his own character, and we will ask, and we are asking the people of Zambia to evaluate him on what he has been able to achieve in his life and in his job. You can't evaluate him for what other people did in the same job. That is unheard of.
Let's not evaluate or possibly project from what he plans to do for Zambia. Let's talk about this. In as much as he's providing an alternative government.
Yeah.
What exactly can the Zambian people look forward to from Mr. Brian Munduwile and the NRP-UP?
So the way I look at this is that I've been carrying these documents to many of the discussions. So I will start with this one. Where is the camera? This is the manifesto for the PF Pamosi Alliance before we came together. This is a manifesto with Brian Munduwile's picture on it, which was launched publicly before we all came together. This is just a synopsis, okay? This is a manifesto of the People's Party, Dr. Kuplande, before we came together. We have discussed this as well. This is the Zambia we want, is a manifesto of the Zambia we want. All of these are partners of the alliance. to disaggregate and throw them away and say this is just one, again, is being unfair. Because people have come together. It's like a marriage. A marriage is composed of a woman and a man. And the behavior of those people in their respective what they believe come together to make something new. Okay? And we have been able to rationalize these manifesto plus other partner members to come up with a platform which Honorable Brian Munduvile has been speaking to. So what are those? Okay, number one, he has made an undertaking clearly that we believe that the governance system of our country has gone wrong. The current president has taken away fundamental rights. The current government has made sure that we have instituted a constitution which people didn't want, which gives too much power to the executive, which has put a proportional representation system not to a parliamentary system but to the executive under Bill 7, where the judiciary in this country has been compromised, where the parliamentary system that we have known, even stronger within the one-party state, is now far weaker than it was. And Brian Munduvile and his running mate have made an undertaking that we will be able to re-look at the constitution and ensure that we have a new constitution as we head towards the Fourth Republic, but one that will be a consultative process with the people to restore fundamental rights that we have been losing, particularly in the last 5 years. Okay, that is a promise. He has undertaken it. His own running mate at a rally just a few days ago was stating this particular issue. We will bring back the independence of the institutions that are supposed to be independent, like the Electoral Commission, like the police service, like the civil service. There's been this huge issue where the UPND have been trying to create the impression that it is wrong for us to warn civil servants if they are being partisan. The civil service is supposed to be independent. It is not supposed to be operated by party cadres, and this is within the rules, regulations of a democratic system. We will ensure, as he has said, that the civil service will operate professionally. It's in these manifestos and so on. So that is in terms of government, the key pillars. Zero tolerance to corruption, which he has stated, which are in the manifesto. That is the issue of governance.
Just before we move on from governance, why should the Zambians trust this? I ask this question because some of these things have been said. If you look at independence of some of these institutions, the autonomy of some of these institutions, you can even add on the Zambia police. It continues to be the case, but what has been observed is that when opposition parties form government or form the ruling party, it benefits them, and therefore this does not tend to be changed. But same as Public Order Act and discussions around that. It seems to be the same rhetoric. Why should the Zambians believe this time around?
That is why you evaluate the character of an individual. And that is why in most democratic systems, they scrutinize the character of an individual. Okay? Now, and as I said, not all individuals are the same. So, for example, not every president has made undertakings about the rule of law and has broken them. Mwanawasa, for example, made undertakings about the rule of law and he executed and believed, and people believed that he was serious about what he was doing. Okay? So there are people who are able to keep their promises. There are some people who are liars. Okay? I would like to put it to you that the candidature of Brian Munduvile is serious about executing these undertakings from the perspective of governance. Okay? So I think that they should have trust and the confidence, and many of us that have joined this movement have joined it on the basis that all of us are serious about rebooting the Zambia that we want. Because everybody wants a better Zambia. And the manpower that has been identified to be around Munduvile is those who truly believe. I truly believe that this needs to be done. And I'm supporting this. And I will do everything possible to be a part of the process of making sure that that is done. If if I'm within the armpit of government or within the outer circles. I don't have to be to have a job in order to push this. I've always pushed these agendas when I think that it is important for us to move forward. And certainly many civil society people who are supporting this agenda will also be able to exert their influence to ensure that we fulfill the undertaking that Vamunduvile has made. So we can debate the issue of trust, but you know that most of us are able to see and look at a person and to be able to assess whether this person is a person who's trustworthy. And I think that he is trustworthy in this regard. Okay? So that is one about issues to do with governance. Then let us move to economic management. He has again made it very clear in many of the rallies that he's gone through that his preoccupation would be to ensure that macroeconomic parameters do not stand alone and do not affect the real welfare of people. He has said before we start boasting about inflation or kukamba chizungu chitali on inflation and reserves, that we will make sure that our policies are impacting and are being felt by you, the ordinary person. That is what he said in Yimba. That before we start going to boast Kulibazungu about these figures, that we will ensure that these things have impacted you well. So the undertaking here, obviously, is that we will deal with the cost of living. That the candidature of Brian Munduvile and his running mate will deal with the cost of living. How do you do this? Again, they are contained here. And I can look at just three issues here. One of the issues that deals with the cost of living and is part of a big component of people's cost is food. In this country, in almost all the areas of productivity, whether it is maize, whether it is soybeans, whether it is rice and so on, our levels of productivity per hectare has tended to be low. We've been struggling over this over many years. So the marginal cost of producing on a hectare of land, where in Malawi they might produce 8 tons of maize per hectare, we produce 2. So invariably in a situation like that, the per unit cost of the tonnage which you are producing is high, and it affects the end product price. We have made an undertaking in here that we will try to do everything possible to ensure that our hectarage, our tonnage per hectare increases so the marginal costs could be lower. And there are programs in here how best to do that. One of the issues that raises the cost of living is the cost of housing. We have a situation where the component of your income that goes to rentals or servicing your house is very high. One of the reasons for that is that we haven't had any aggressive programs that have tended to target the housing market, both from the position of owners of housing, as well as just urban renewal of the high-density areas. The programs that are contained here are looking towards ensuring that we have urban renewal, that we create sector-specific financial institutions that would go to ensure that we expand the stock of housing in the country. Now, some of these measures are medium to long-term, others will be short-term. So that is housing. One of the issues that causes the cost of living to escalate is just the lack of infrastructure in terms of transportation of the many goods that come to the country from the provinces to the center, as well as from outside the country, because we're a landlocked country. We've always been a landlocked country. We've talked about what is this terminology that we all get excited about, land linked and so on. We haven't really made the transition from being a landlocked to a land-linked. And some of the programs there, investment in rail, investment in roads, in order to be able to ensure that we become truly land-linked so that the cost of production could... Let me just say one other last thing, because this issue of cost of living is very important. If all of these interventions that I have itemized, which have been itemized in the platform, take a little bit longer, maybe after 1 year, which is to 2 years, which is medium to longer term. Then there are programs that government has identified which are very significant in order to cushion the cost of living in the short term. And those we call subsidies, or in economics they are called subsidies. There is this great argument in the world about whether you can provide short-term subsidies in order to cushion them, and you have identified, and we have alluded to some of them. Some of those programs are already there, like social cash transfer. It is basically a subsidy, like a disability fund, and so those programs have been identified to have been to be positive, and they will remain. What the government will do, the government of Munduvila and Makebi Zulu, is re-evaluate them to be able to see to what extent we can make them better. Okay, as measures which are intended to cushion the cost of living in the shorter term, and how we will be able to make sure that they are not implemented on the basis of just party cadres or people who are predispositioned to those in government. So all of those are programs that will go towards reducing the cost of living. That is the reason why Honorable Munduvile is able to say it's an inflation in Dimwe. Is my reserves in Dimwe. That is not to say that he's not concerned about keeping reserves. That is not to say that he will not be concerned about inflation, but that he will be more concerned about deflation.
And just on that, do you think that it's perhaps a problem of how the message is being packaged? Because it seems that this has been received with mixed reactions. People who may feel that it's being trivialized. Others would argue that it's being misunderstood. Do you think the problem is with the messaging? And to add on to that, we had done
to distort and manipulate the message of the presidential candidate and his people. And they do it all the times. And I think that they've been good at it, partly because, as I said, they do have this greater outreach than we have had simply because we are not in government. But if you look at the things that have been said by the candidate, these are issues which are pretty straightforward. On one program, I've been doing this for the last 3 weeks now, and I would like to believe that I'm coming to an end of it so I can turn my efforts elsewhere. Even things which are straightforward, like the issue of the civil servant, was distorted. Even to the effect that Dr. Bene and others are trying to insinuate that it is okay for civil servants to be partisan. And yet this is a very clear cut, and they managed to create a lot of hullabaloo about questioning as to whether Munduvile said they will fire all the civil servants on something that is very clear. And there was no miscommunication there. He said that civil servant must be independent, there must be umpires, and anyone who shows through their conduct they do not abide by the civil service regulations, they should be warned. There is no controversy over this. But our detractors and the government made it such a huge issue that we now start debating something that is quite obvious.
And so that, I don't know if you saw this earlier today, it was in our news. Where we had Zambia's ambassador to South Korea openly states that he's back in Zambia to campaign for President Hakainde Hichilema. And then he argues that he's campaigning for President Hichilema because if someone like Mr. Brandon Ndubile wins, he's out of his job.
Yes.
What are your thoughts around that?
You can see what I'm saying. That is wrong. It is just plain wrong. An ambassador is a civil servant. You have to make a decision whether you want to be an ambassador, who is a civil servant, or you want to be a politician. I have been a civil servant for 3 times in my life. The first time I joined the civil service, from being a political figure, I joined the Ministry of Finance. And in 2006, when I made the decision to stand as a candidate, I quit. I wrote a letter, okay, to the ministry, expressing that I wanted to take part in the political process. Mwanawasa, if you remember, there were certain ministers and people who were in civil service just made a declaration. One of them was my sister Dora. She made a declaration, and there was another one. Because you cannot breach the civil service regulations. I do know for a fact that as we speak today, there are more than 300 civil servants that are parked at a cabinet office because it was the view of HH and those people who came in that prior to the elections of 2021, that some of those had shown indication that they had they had partisan approach. In some cases, they had the wrong names. So they've been parked there, they are still on salary, and he doesn't even know what to do with them.
So should Ambassador Andrew Banda be relieved of his duties?
Andrew Banda, as you know, is my brother. I have known him for a long time. You know, he's the son of the late president. Rupia was like an uncle to me, so I know Andrew Banda very well.
And that's why I ask you, should he be relieved of his duties for doing this?
There should be no sacred cows if any of us do something that is contrary to the regulations that have been set forward and put forward that we should all observe. Okay? There should be no dispute. Even if it is I who does something that is against the regulations, I should equally be punished. You can't have a law for two different people. And that is how governments become unpopular. Someone else does something, it is okay. Someone that does the same thing, you give him the fullest extent of the law. The law is supposed to be fair and executed fairly on any of us. There are not supposed to be any names in the law. There are civil servants who are permanent secretaries who are all the time campaigning. That is not correct.
So you maintain that he was wrong for doing what he did?
He is wrong. If that is, I didn't see the statement myself. You are telling me about.
It's just that we're out of time, but we had this in our news.
But if that is what he's done, what he has done is wrong, and it shouldn't even be up to Andrew to make that decision. It is a decision that is made by the Public Service Commission through the procedures that they use. You know, as I said, I had to resign myself. Not only the first time when I was at the Ministry of Finance. In 2011, I was asked to stand. I didn't want to, but I was asked to stand, and I thought, okay, maybe there's a good thing. I had to resign from ZDA and cut my contract, and I did not get my gratuity, because those are what the rules are. So if I'm able to do it, why should others breach the rules? You know, it is not right. It is not fair. So I was answering your question that sometimes because of the greater outreach that any person who is in government has, they can distort and manipulate what the candidate is saying, when in fact that is not what they're saying. So our role is to try and clarify, and that is one of the things that I and many colleagues within the Tonse Alliance have been doing regarding the policy frame of Brian Mundubile. Let me just say, because this policy issue is very important. I have dealt with a specific issue to do with cost of living.
Yes.
One of the issues that is uppermost on the minds of many Zambians today is the percentage share of ownership in our own economy between those of us who regard ourselves as Zambians domiciled, born and bred here, whatever color that they may be, as opposed to those who are owners of the factors and the means of production who are of foreign concerns. Okay? We in Zambia, many of us, and many people feel this, that really we have become spectators in the productivity of our economy. And one of the things that Brian Mundubile and the policy platform of NRPUP is that we will ensure that Zambians have a greater role in terms of ownership and participation in the productive process of their country. This is an argument that is either to the right of the economic spectrum or to the left. We have said we will take a centralist approach towards many of these issues, but if need be, we will ensure that there is, where the market has failed, that the state intervenes to ensure that the local people, whether it is artisanal, whether it is small and medium scale enterprises, whether it is medium scale business, whether it is large scale. How many Zambians today are owners of large scale companies? And has the state been proactive in ensuring that we Zambians have a greater stake in the economy? The platform of Brian Mundubile and Makebi Zulu has made it very clear that that will be one of our preoccupations. Our colleagues now seem to be preoccupied with giving everything to foreign concerns. We are not saying that we will not be concerned in terms of foreign direct investment, but that we will equally place domestic direct investment with a view of having a greater ownership in the economy on the Zambian people. That is the economic policy that is going to be.
Lungu, thank you so much for joining us on Diamond Live tonight.
I'm very grateful for the invitation.
We'll be joined by the Tonse Alliance Presidential Campaign Deputy Coordinator for Lusaka Province. It's going to be quite the busy week for him and the rest of the team from the Tonse Alliance as the Lusaka rallies take place. And for those who will be a part of them, you get to hear the message. By the way, I actually meant to ask, so where do people get a hold of the manifestos? I saw that the UPND today were distributing it through the Zambia Daily Mail. Those who got a copy were able to get a manifesto.
We will be doing the same shortly.
Okay.
So stay tuned.